I never thought a simple letter could change the course of my entire life. But then again, I never expected to find one at all, especially not hidden in the dust-choked attic of my childhood home, 6 months after burying my mother. That day, the sky outside was swollen with storm clouds, the kind that seemed to press down on the earth, heavy and impatient. Rain hammered the roof in uneven rhythms, dripping down through the gutters with an almost metallic rattle. The whole house felt tense, as though it, too, was waiting for something to break. I told myself I was organizing. That's what I called it when neighbors asked what I was doing with all the boxes my mother had left behind. But the truth was, I wasn't organizing. I was searching. For what? I didn't know. Maybe for her voice, folded into the pages of an old journal. Or the smell of her perfume still clinging to a forgotten scarf. Something, anything, that would make me feel like she wasn't really gone. The attic smelled of cedar and mothballs, tinged with that dry, musty sweetness of paper that's been asleep for decades. Dust motes danced in the slivers of gray light slipping through the tiny window. Boxes were stacked everywhere, leaning precariously like towers that could collapse with one wrong step. That's when I saw it. Wedged beneath a bundle of yellowing newspapers, half hidden in the corner, was a small cream-colored envelope. Unlike everything else around it, it was clean. No dust, no curled edges. It looked almost out of place, as if it had been waiting there for me, untouched by time. I pulled it free, brushing my thumb over the front. My name was written there. Not son, not sweetheart, just my full name, each letter carved with careful, deliberate strokes in my mother's unmistakable handwriting. My chest tightened. I sat down on one of the boxes, the wood creaking under my weight, and held the envelope in my hands. It wasn't heavy, but it felt dense somehow, like the paper inside carried more than just words. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I just stared. The rain's rhythm filled the silence, each drop sounding louder than the last. My hands trembled, and I pressed the envelope against my knee to steady them. Why would she write to me and never give it to me? Why hide it in the attic? A memory flickered. I was maybe 10 years old, wandering into her room unannounced. She was at her desk, shoulders hunched, her body folded over something she quickly shoved into a drawer when she saw me. I remember the redness around her eyes, the way her breath caught. Allergies, she had said. I'd believed her then, but now, with the envelope in my hand, I wasn't so sure. I slid my thumb beneath the seal. But before I could tear it open, a strange weight pressed down on me. My throat closed up, and I couldn't breathe right. It felt like the air in the attic had thickened, like the house itself was holding its breath. No, not here, not now. I shoved the envelope into my pocket and scrambled downstairs, every step groaning under my weight. In the kitchen, I made tea I didn't drink, letting the steam fog up my glasses. I told myself I'd open it when I was ready. But the truth was, I would never be ready. That night, I placed the envelope on my nightstand, right beside the clock. I lay in bed staring at it, unable to close my eyes. The clock ticked past midnight. Then 1, then 2. The house creaked around me, old beams stretching and settling, every sound amplified in the silence. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. My hands shook as I picked up the envelope and broke the seal. The paper inside was folded neatly in half, the edges perfectly aligned. I unfolded it slowly, the crackle of the paper deafening in the stillness. Her handwriting flowed across the page, elegant yet urgent, the strokes slightly uneven in places, as if she had written quickly but carefully. The first line made my heart stop. If you're reading this, it means the truth has finally found you, the truth I could never say out loud. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My eyes devoured the page, desperate and terrified at once. Words leapt out at me like sparks from a fire. Someone else. Danger. You were never supposed to know. The letter was unfinished. It cut off mid-sentence, the ink trailing into nothing, as if she'd been interrupted or had stopped herself. But the last full line was enough to chill my blood. He might come looking for you. I froze, staring at the words until they blurred. My breathing grew shallow. The rain outside had stopped, but the silence was louder now, oppressive, pressing against my ears. He, who was he, and why would he come looking for me? The question swirled until I thought I might go mad. I wanted to scream at the paper, to demand it give me more answers. But it remained still, blank, final. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My mother, the woman who had raised me, loved me, protected me, had hidden something from me all my life. Something dangerous. But as terrifying as the letter was, it wasn't the end. Not even close. Because the next morning, when I woke, the envelope was gone. It wasn't under my pillow, not on the nightstand, not on the floor. Vanished. At first, I thought I'd dreamed the whole thing. But no, my fingertip still bore the faint paper cut from opening the seal. The folded impression of the paper had pressed into my palm where I'd clenched it too hard. The letter had been real. And now, it was missing. I sat there in bed, heart racing, scanning the room. My window was closed. My door was locked. There was no sign anyone had come in. But someone had. I could feel it, even before I saw the proof. On my dresser sat a teacup. My mother's favorite teacup, the one with the tiny blue roses. I hadn't touched it in months. I knew I hadn't. And yet, there it was, perfectly clean, with a single drop of liquid, water, or maybe tea, clinging to the rim. I stared at it, my body numb. The house was supposed to be empty. But it wasn't. Someone had been inside my room while I slept. And they'd taken the letter. That was the night I realized my mother's secrets hadn't been buried with her. Someone else knew about them. Someone else wanted them. And whoever he was, I had the sinking feeling that he had already found me. The teacup sat there on my dresser, mocking me. Perfectly clean, gleaming in the pale morning light. I hadn't touched it in months, and I knew it. My chest tightened as I stared at that single drop of liquid trembling on the rim. It meant only one thing. Someone had been in my room. I stumbled back, heart hammering, scanning the corners of the bedroom as though a stranger might leap out at me. My closet door was shut, but I could have sworn it was open the night before. The curtains shifted slightly in the breeze from the radiator, and for a split second, I thought I saw a shadow move with them. "Get a grip," I muttered under my breath. But my voice cracked, weak. I didn't believe myself. I tore apart the room, overturning pillows, yanking drawers open, crawling on my knees to peer beneath the bed. The letter wasn't there. The envelope wasn't there. Only dust and the faint smell of cedar from the attic, still clinging to my clothes. At one point, I even opened the window to check if maybe, somehow, impossibly, the wind had carried it outside. But the street below was empty, washed clean by the night's rain, not a scrap of paper in sight. The letter was gone, and the teacup was proof it hadn't simply vanished on its own. I dialed my best friend, Mark. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone twice. When he answered, his voice was groggy, still thick with sleep. "Hey, it's gone," I blurted. "What's gone?" "The letter. The one I told you about. It's not here. Someone took it." There was a long pause. Too long. Finally, he said, "Maybe you misplaced it. You've been under a lot of stress." "I didn't misplace it," I snapped. "It was right beside me when I fell asleep. Now it's gone. And someone left a teacup on my dresser." Another pause. Then, softer, "A teacup. My mom's teacup. The one with the blue roses. It wasn't there last night." I could hear him breathing on the other end, slow and careful. "Listen," he said finally. "You need to calm down. Lock your doors. Maybe stay somewhere else for a few days. I'll come by tonight, we'll figure this out." His voice was steady, but it didn't make me feel any better. After I hung up, I couldn't bring myself to stay in the house. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the old pipes, made my skin crawl. So I threw on my jacket and walked. Nowhere in particular, just away. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried that damp, metallic tang that follows a storm. Puddles reflected the cloudy sky, and with every step, my reflection warped and broke apart. I ended up at the park, the same one my mother used to take me to as a child. The swings swayed gently in the breeze, chains squealing faintly. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I was safe there, surrounded by the chatter of birds and the distant hum of traffic. But then I noticed something. On the bench where my mother used to sit, where she'd watch me run and play, lay another envelope. Cream-colored, clean, just like the first one. My legs carried me toward it before my brain had even decided. I picked it up with trembling fingers. No name this time, just blank on the front. I hesitated, looking around the park. Empty, too empty. The swings still moving, the air suddenly colder. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded twice. I unfolded it slowly, the paper soft and warm, as if someone had been holding it only moments before. 2 words, scrawled in the center in unfamiliar handwriting. "Stop searching." My stomach dropped. I spun around, scanning the trees, the path, the empty benches. Nothing. No one. Yet I could feel eyes on me. Watching. Waiting. I shoved the note into my pocket and ran home, heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. By the time I reached the house, sweat was slick on my forehead despite the chill. Inside, I locked the door, bolted it, even shoved a chair under the handle. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the chair. I collapsed onto the couch, chest heaving, and tried to steady my thoughts. My mother had written a letter warning me. Someone had taken it. Now there was another letter, telling me to stop. Who would want me to stop? And what exactly was I even searching for? I rubbed my temples, whispering to myself. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. That night, I tried to convince myself I was safe. I made pasta I didn't eat. I poured a glass of wine I didn't drink. I turned on the TV and stared at it without seeing anything. By midnight, exhaustion pulled at my eyelids, but I refused to go upstairs. I curled up on the couch instead, the glow of the TV my only comfort. Sometime after 3 a.m., I woke to a sound. A soft thud, followed by the creak of a floorboard. My blood froze. The sound had come from the kitchen. I sat perfectly still, barely daring to breathe. The house seemed to hold its breath with me. Then came another sound, the faint scrape of a drawer opening. Someone was inside. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to call for help, but my body wouldn't move. I grabbed the remote, the only thing within reach, and clutched it like a weapon. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might give me away. Then a voice. Low, male, calm. I know you're here. My stomach lurched. I crept silently up the stairs, heart thudding in my throat, and ducked into my bedroom. I locked the door, pressed my back against it, and dialed 911. My thumb hovered over the call button. But before I could press it, the noise stopped. No footsteps, no voice, just silence. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Then, faintly, I heard the front door click shut. I didn't sleep again that night. When the sun finally rose, I crept downstairs. The kitchen was exactly as I'd left it. No signs of forced entry. Nothing missing. Nothing broken. Nothing, except one thing. The photograph of me and my mother that had always sat on the mantelpiece. Gone. I sank to the floor, the room spinning around me. Whoever had been here hadn't wanted money. They hadn't wanted valuables. They wanted me, or her, and I was starting to realize, maybe they were the same thing. I thought the missing letter was the mystery. But it was only the beginning. Because later that day, I would discover something hidden in my mother's locked desk. And what I found inside would make me question everything I thought I knew about her, and about the man who might be watching me even now. I thought finding that first letter was the end of it. That once I held it, I'd finally understand my mother, my father, or at least the version of them I thought I knew. But I was wrong. The day after I discovered it, I couldn't focus. I walked through the familiar streets, but everything seemed off. The way the wind rattled the cafe awning, the way my neighbor's dog barked at nothing. Shadows stretched and twisted in ways they hadn't before. My senses were heightened. I could feel the tension in the air like static electricity. Then the first oddity happened. At work, I noticed a man standing across the street. He wore a gray coat and a fedora pulled low, his hands shoved into his pockets. Every time I glanced at him, he was there. Not moving closer, not leaving, just watching. My heart raced. My rational brain screamed he's probably just waiting for the bus, but some instinct, the same one that told me the letter was important, screamed otherwise. I tried to ignore it, bury myself in spreadsheets, in emails. But when I returned home that evening, I found something unsettling. A small envelope slipped under my apartment door. No handwriting I recognized, no sender, only a single line, typed in stark black letters. Stop looking, or you'll regret it. I froze. My hands trembled as I held the note. The words weren't threatening in the typical way, but the implication was clear. Someone knew I had found the letter. Someone was watching me. For hours, I paced my apartment, replaying every childhood memory, every strange warning my mother had ever muttered under her breath. Be careful who you trust, Emily, she'd said once. At the time, I'd laughed it off. Now, her words felt like a riddle I couldn't solve. The next day, I decided I had to confront my mother. Maybe seeing her face, hearing her voice, would calm the storm raging inside me. I waited until dinner, the house filled with the aroma of roasted garlic and herbs. My mother hummed softly in the kitchen, completely unaware that I held both the letter and the typed threat. I cleared my throat. Mom, we need to talk about something serious. She turned, a warm smile on her face. But when she saw the letter, her eyes flickered, a flash of panic, almost imperceptible, but there. I think you already know, she said, voice tight. I froze. Know what? She hesitated, her hands clutching the edge of the countertop. That some truths can be dangerous. Dangerous. My chest tightened. That word echoed in my mind as I remembered the man outside my apartment. The anonymous note. The shadows that seemed to follow me. Suddenly, what I thought was a family mystery became something else entirely. A puzzle with real stakes, where every move could have consequences I didn't yet understand. That night, unable to sleep, I started piecing together what I knew. 1. The letter. My mother had hidden it for 20 years. 2. My father. Absent, supposedly dead, though clues suggested otherwise. 3. Anonymous warnings. Someone was watching me, trying to keep me from uncovering the truth. 4. My mother's cryptic words, dangerous truths. As I connected the dots, a horrifying possibility formed. What if my father's disappearance wasn't voluntary? What if the letter's secrecy, my mother's lies, and the threats were all part of something bigger, something I was being pulled into? A noise downstairs startled me, the scraping of a chair, soft footsteps. I froze, holding my breath. The apartment was supposed to be empty. Slowly, I crept to the window. Outside, under the street lamp, was the man in the gray coat. He wasn't moving, just waiting. I slammed the curtains shut, my hands shaking, heart pounding. Whoever he was, they weren't here to be friendly. Over the next few days, the tension escalated. Objects in my apartment were slightly out of place. The locks on my doors seemed looser. I received another envelope, this time, a single photograph, a younger version of me, smiling on my 7th birthday, with my father standing beside me. But there was a hand covering his face. The message was clear, he's alive, but hidden. I confronted my mother again. Her composure cracked, just a little. Why won't you tell me the truth about Dad? I demanded. Her voice shook. Because some truths will destroy more than just you. And just like that, the stakes skyrocketed. What was hidden in the past wasn't just family drama, it was something dangerous. Something that could reach into my present. Then came the micro twist I didn't see coming. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. A text. Meet me where it all began. Midnight. Alone. If you want answers. I stared at the screen. My instinct screamed don't go, but my curiosity, my need for the truth, overpowered the fear. The next hour was a whirlwind. I packed a small bag, flashlight, phone, the letter, and set off toward the old pier, the same one my mother had once told me never to go near after dark. The streets were deserted. Every creak of a sidewalk grate sounded like an explosion in my ears. I reached the pier. Fog rolled in from the water, thick and clinging. Shadows danced across the boards in the pale moonlight. And then I saw him, a figure standing at the far end. A familiar dread surged through me. But this time, I didn't run. I walked toward him, each step feeling like it stretched into eternity. And when I was close enough to see his face, I realized I didn't know who to trust anymore. Because the man wasn't just a stranger. He knew everything about my family, my father, the letter, even things I hadn't yet discovered myself. And just like that, I understood. The mystery wasn't just deepening, it was about to explode. The closer I got to the truth, the more dangerous it became. Someone didn't want me uncovering my father's secret. And now, standing on the pier in the fog, I had to decide, would I step into the unknown, or walk away and pretend I'd never seen the letter at all? I don't know if you've ever tried to keep living your normal life while your entire world feels like it's caving in, but that's what the next few weeks felt like for me. Outwardly, nothing changed. I still went to work. I still grabbed coffee at the same shop. I still smiled when neighbors waved. But underneath, I was vibrating with tension, like a wire stretched too tight. Every time I looked at my mother, I saw the letter in my mind. Every conversation was laced with hidden meanings. Did she know that I knew? Was she watching me more closely now? Or was I just paranoid, inventing layers of betrayal where maybe none existed? The hardest part was dinner. She always cooked for us, and sitting across from her, the smell of roasted chicken or garlic butter pasta filling the kitchen, I felt like an imposter. She'd ask about my day, and I'd answer with short, bland words, terrified that if I spoke too much, the truth would slip out. I know you've been hiding something from me for 20 years. But she never seemed different. If anything, she seemed almost softer. Like she'd stopped fighting against something. One night, though, something happened that shattered my fragile illusion of stability. I was washing dishes when I heard my phone buzz on the counter. It was an email notification, from an account I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Do you really know the truth about your mother?" My hands froze, soap sliding down my wrist. I dried my fingers quickly and opened the email. Inside was a single line. "If you want answers, come to the old pier tomorrow at 10 p.m. Come alone." That was it. No signature. No explanation. I swear I felt my blood turn to ice. My first instinct was to delete it, pretend it never arrived. But deep down, I couldn't. Because someone out there knew. Someone else was holding a piece of this puzzle, and they wanted to give it to me. I spent the entire next day distracted, barely able to function. By the time night fell, I was shaking with adrenaline. I told my mom I was heading to a friend's house, grabbed my jacket, and drove to the pier. It was a desolate place at night. The wood creaked under my feet, waves slapped against the posts, and the salty air whipped against my face. The only light came from a flickering lamp near the end of the pier. And there, standing in the shadows, was a man. He looked to be in his 50s, weathered face, worn coat. He kept glancing around nervously, like he was afraid of being seen. "You came," he said when I approached. His voice was low, gravelly. "Who are you?" I asked. He looked me over, and something in his eyes softened. "You look like her. Your mother. But you've got his eyes." My stomach lurched. The man nodded. "Your father." I stepped back. "My father is dead." He shook his head slowly. "No, he isn't." Those 3 words ripped through me like a blade. I wanted to laugh, to scream, to deny everything. But part of me, some desperate, aching part, wanted it to be true. The man pulled something from his coat pocket. It was a photograph, old and creased. In it, I saw a younger version of him, standing next to another man. And that man, he looked exactly like me. The same jawline, the same eyes. "This is him," the stranger said. "Alive. Taken only 5 years ago." I stared at the photo, my throat dry. Why would my mother say he's dead? His expression darkened. "Because she doesn't want you to know the truth. She's protecting something, or hiding something. But she isn't telling you everything." Before I could ask more, the sound of footsteps echoed behind us. I spun around, heart pounding. My mother. She was standing at the start of the pier, her coat whipping in the wind, her eyes locked on me with an intensity I had never seen before. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. The stranger stiffened. "You shouldn't have come." But my mother didn't look at him, she looked only at me. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with a strange mix of fear and fury. "You need to come home," she said firmly. I shook my head, clutching the photograph in my hand. "No, not until you tell me the truth." The air between us crackled with tension. My mother took a step closer, her voice trembling. "You don't understand what you're getting yourself into. If you keep digging, you'll destroy everything." I swallowed hard, my voice breaking. "Then explain it to me. Tell me why you lied. Tell me why you've hidden my father from me for 20 years. For the first time in my life, I saw tears in her eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but the stranger cut in, his voice sharp. "She'll never tell you, not the whole truth, because if she does, it will ruin her." My mother whipped her head toward him, fury blazing. "Stay out of this." I stood frozen between them, torn apart by confusion and fear. 2 people, 2 versions of the truth. And I had no idea who to believe. The wind howled, the lamp flickered, and I realized, whatever secret my mother had been hiding wasn't just about family. It was bigger, much bigger, and the worst part, I was already in too deep to walk away. Because the next words out of my mother's mouth changed everything. "If you don't come home with me now, you'll end up like him." Her voice cracked on the last word, and a chill ran through me. Did she mean my father? The man who was supposedly still alive? Or did she mean something far darker? I didn't know, but I had to find out. And so I made a choice that night, one that would drag me into a storm I wasn't sure I'd survive. But the truth, it was already too late to turn back. Shocking realization. The father is alive, but mother and stranger both contradict each other. Bridge to part 5. If my father wasn't dead, then what had my mother been hiding all these years? And why was she so desperate to keep me from the truth? I sat there, in that cramped library reading room, with my mother's words still vibrating inside my skull like a struck bell. For years, I had lived inside a narrative she constructed, one where she was the protector, the one who shielded me from harm. But now, it seemed she was also the architect of my blindness. I read the letter again, slower this time, tracing each curve of ink as though it could somehow rewrite itself if I looked long enough. My father hadn't abandoned me. He hadn't left in the night like a coward. He'd been forced away, and the reason wasn't weakness or selfishness, it was something darker. Something dangerous. The words, they threatened both of us, lodged in my throat. Who were they? Why would anyone threaten a young couple with a child? My childhood had been ordinary, or at least I thought so. School, scraped knees, birthday cakes with lopsided candles. What shadow had been lurking just beyond the edges of my memory all this time? I felt heat rising in my chest, part fury, part shame. Fury at my mother for hiding this. Shame that I had been so quick to accept the easier story, that my father simply didn't love me enough to stay. But the letter didn't stop there. Beneath my mother's looping apology, another line made my blood run cold. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't keep my promise. It means they've found us again. I looked up from the page, suddenly aware of how small and vulnerable I felt in that quiet library. The air smelled of dust and old bindings, but now it felt like something else hung there too, paranoia. I closed the folder quickly, my hands trembling. My heart wouldn't stop hammering. Was it paranoia, or was it recognition? Because deep down, I realized I had noticed strange things as a kid. A man always parked near our street, different cars but the same face behind the wheel. My mother changing locks twice in a single year. The way she insisted I never walk home alone, even in our safe neighborhood. At the time, I thought she was just cautious, maybe even overprotective. But now, those puzzle pieces rearranged themselves into something terrifying. Someone had been watching us. For years. I didn't realize I was whispering until the librarian cleared her throat, shooting me a sharp look. My voice had cracked out loud. They were watching us. I stuffed the letter back into the envelope and shoved it into my bag. I had to get out of there, breathe air that wasn't thick with ghosts. Outside, the sky had bruised into evening. Street lamps flickered to life, one by one, like watchful eyes. My hands were slick with sweat, and I couldn't tell if the chill running down my back was from the cool air, or from being exposed. Because if they had found us again, as the letter said, what did that mean for me now? I barely slept that night. The letter stayed under my pillow, like a restless presence. Every creak of the house, every groan of the pipes, felt amplified. My dreams were jagged flashes. My father's face morphing into strangers, my mother's lips sealed with silence, and shadows in the window staring in. When morning finally came, it didn't bring clarity. Only more dread. I decided I couldn't face this alone. I called my aunt, my mother's younger sister. She answered in her usual brisk tone, but when I told her I'd found something in Mom's belongings, her voice cracked. What did you find? She asked. A letter. From her. About Dad. About threats. The pause on the other end was too long. Then she whispered, she told me you'd find it one day. My breath hitched. You knew. Her sigh was heavy, ragged. Not everything. Just enough. Your father, he got caught up in something he shouldn't have. He thought he was helping someone, but it was dangerous people, and when he tried to walk away, they didn't let him. My pulse roared in my ears. So he left to protect us? Yes. Her voice broke. Your mother made him promise to stay away, because as long as you two were together, they'd never stop looking. It destroyed her, but she thought silence was safer than truth. I wanted to scream, cry, punch something. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles ached. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because the less you knew, the safer you were. At least, that's what we believed. Believed. Past tense. Do you think I'm in danger now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Another pause. I don't know, but if the letter said what you claim, maybe you need to be careful. That word, maybe, hung like a blade over my head. The following days blurred together. Every time someone brushed too close in a store, or a car lingered behind me for more than a block, my pulse spiked. I started carrying the letter everywhere, tucked into my jacket pocket, as though having proof made me less vulnerable. Then came the night I found the second envelope. It wasn't hidden in some dusty drawer or sealed box. It was slid under my apartment door, waiting for me when I got home late from work. The envelope was unmarked. My stomach dropped as soon as I saw it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, no signature. Stop digging. The truth won't set you free. It will bury you, just like it buried him. The paper trembled in my hands. My knees nearly gave out. This wasn't a relic from the past. This was now. Someone knew I had the letter. Someone knew I was looking. And maybe, just maybe, they were watching me right at that moment. I dropped the blinds, bolted the door, and sat against it, my chest heaving. For years I thought my father's absence was the wound. But now I realized the real wound was still bleeding, because whoever they were, they hadn't gone away. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to let shadows dictate my life anymore. If my mother had been too afraid to face the truth, if my father had been forced into silence, I wouldn't repeat their story. I was going to find out who they were, even if it destroyed me. And that's when I uncovered the biggest twist yet. Digging through my mother's old keepsake box, tucked beneath harmless photos and receipts, I found a safe deposit key. The number etched into the tiny brass surface sent a chill down my spine. She had been keeping something more. Something I wasn't meant to find until much later, or maybe never. As I turned the key over in my hand, I swear I heard her voice in my memory, trembling but resolute. If you're reading this, it means they've found us again. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if opening that deposit box would give me answers. Or sign my death warrant. I don't think I breathed for a full minute after finishing the letter. My hands shook so violently I had to set it down on the table, afraid I'd rip it apart by accident. My entire life, 28 years of questions, confusions, strange feelings, suddenly reorganized into a picture that made horrifying sense. My mother wasn't my mother. And the man who raised me wasn't my father. I whispered the words aloud just to hear how wrong they sounded. She's not my mom. He's not my dad. The room felt like it tilted sideways, like gravity itself had betrayed me. But then, something else. Something buried deep under the tidal wave of panic. A memory. When I was 7, I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of my parents arguing. I crept to the hallway, clutching my stuffed bear, and I heard my mom say, "You can't just erase her. She'll want to know one day." At the time, I thought she meant some distant cousin or an old friend. But now, I realized she had been talking about me, and I had no idea how to even begin to process that. I stumbled to the sink, splashing cold water on my face. My reflection looked alien. My own eyes, suddenly, weren't mine anymore. They belonged to someone else, someone I didn't know. The letter said my birth mother's name was Evelyn Hart. Hart. The name felt heavy in my mouth. A name I had never spoken before, yet somehow it vibrated inside me like an echo from long ago. But where was she now? Was she alive? Did she ever try to find me? Or had she written this one desperate letter, then vanished into silence? I couldn't stop the questions, and yet, part of me didn't want the answers. Because every answer I found would mean admitting my entire life had been a carefully constructed lie. And that's when I heard the floor creak. I spun around. It was my mother. Or, the woman I'd called my mother my whole life. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, wearing her nightgown, her face pale. Her eyes flicked to the letter on the table. And just like that, I knew she recognized it instantly. Her lips trembled, and she whispered, "You found it." I didn't even know what to say. Anger boiled inside me, colliding with heartbreak. "You knew. All this time. You knew and you never told me." Tears welled in her eyes. I wanted to. God, I wanted to so many times. But I was terrified of losing you. Losing me. I snapped. "You already lost me 20 years ago when you decided I didn't deserve the truth." Her hands shook as she reached out, then pulled back like she was afraid I'd burn her. "You don't understand. I raised you. I stayed awake through your fevers. I taught you to ride a bike. I was there for every scraped knee, every heartbreak. I may not have given birth to you, but I'm your mother." Her words hit me like knives because, deep down, I knew they were true. She had been there for everything. She had loved me in 1,000 little ways. But that didn't erase the fact that she had also stolen something from me, the right to know who I really was. I shook my head, choking on anger and grief. "You should have told me. I had a right to know." Her shoulders crumpled, and she whispered the words I never expected. "I was afraid you'd choose her over me." The silence that followed was unbearable. Because in that moment, I realized, my whole childhood, every rule she enforced, every time she seemed too protective, it wasn't just about love. It was about fear. Fear that one day I would discover Evelyn, and leave. And that fear had driven her to bury the truth. Finally, I asked the question that had been clawing at me since I read the letter. My voice cracked. Where is she now? Where's Evelyn? My mother's face twisted with something complicated, guilt, sorrow, and maybe even relief. She whispered, she's in London. My heart stopped. London. That wasn't a name in a letter, or a shadow in the past. That was a real place. A reachable place. And then came the twist I didn't expect. She's been writing to you every year since you were born. I staggered back. What? She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. I kept them. All of them. I couldn't bring myself to burn them. They're in a box, in the attic. The attic. The place I was never allowed to go growing up. My head spun. Show me. We climbed the narrow stairs, the silence between us heavy, suffocating. My chest felt like it might crack open from the pressure of all the emotions colliding inside me. She pulled down a dusty cardboard box, placed it in front of me, and stepped back like it was a bomb she couldn't defuse. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside, dozens of envelopes. Some yellowed with age, others crisp and newer. All addressed to me, all sealed with the same looping handwriting, Evelyn Hart. I picked one at random. The postmark said 2007. My 12th birthday. My throat tightened as I opened it. Inside was a card, decorated with little stars. Happy birthday, Emily. I hope today is magical. I hope you laughed so hard your cheeks hurt. I hope you felt loved, because you are. Always. Even if you don't know me yet. I love you more than words can hold. Mom. Mom. Not Evelyn. Not birth mother. She called herself Mom, and in that moment, the floor seemed to vanish beneath me. Because I realized, I had two mothers. One who raised me, and one who had been reaching out across decades, her love trapped in sealed envelopes I never knew existed. I dropped the card, covering my face as sobs tore out of me. I don't know how long I sat there, drowning in tears, but eventually I felt a hand on my shoulder. My mother, the only one I had known until tonight, was kneeling beside me, her eyes swollen from crying. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have given them to you. I should have told you everything. But I couldn't bear the thought of losing you. Her words broke something in me. Because despite everything, despite the lies, the betrayal, I knew she wasn't a monster. She was a mother who had loved desperately, messily, selfishly. And I still loved her too. But I also needed the truth. I wiped my face, staring at the letters. I have to find her. I have to know who she is. Who I am. My mother nodded, her lips trembling. Then I'll help you. That shocked me more than anything. You'd do that, after everything. She swallowed hard. I'd rather walk beside you into the truth than lose you to it alone. And so, a week later, I was on a plane. My hands gripped the armrest as London drew closer, every mile tightening the knot in my chest. In my bag, I carried the first letter I ever read, the one hidden in the drawer, and the stack of unopened envelopes from Evelyn. I couldn't bring myself to read them all yet. Not until I saw her. When the plane landed, my legs felt like stone. But I forced myself forward. Through customs. Into a taxi. Down unfamiliar streets that buzzed with life. Finally, the car stopped in front of a quiet townhouse. My heart hammered as I stepped out. Every step to the door felt like a lifetime. I raised my hand, knocked, and when the door opened, there she was, Evelyn, older than the picture I had imagined, her hair streaked with silver, her eyes tired but alive. And the moment those eyes met mine, I knew. I didn't need a DNA test or proof. I just knew. Her hand flew to her mouth. She whispered my name like it was a prayer, Emily. And for the first time in my life, I heard my mother's real voice. I don't know how this story ends. Because in a way, it's only just beginning. But I do know this. The truth may shatter you, but it also sets you free. And though I can't rewrite the past 20 years, I can choose what comes next. Between the mother who raised me and the mother who loved me from afar, I no longer have to choose one over the other. Because now, I finally know who I am. And I am theirs, both of theirs, forever.